As we continue our study in the church at Pergamus, we come to verse 14 of Revelation chapter 2. Jesus is speaking. He says, I have a few things against you, because you have those among you who hold the doctrine of Balaam. Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. Pergamus is the third of the 7 churches. And one of the things Pergamus is doing is what a lot of churches and Christians are doing today. They're compromising. They're selling out. They're trying to worship Jesus and hold on to false gods. And Pergamus is repeating the same sins that Israel did. And you can find the story of Baal and Balak all the way back in Numbers, starting in chapter 21. It goes all the way to Numbers 25. But let me tell you a little bit of history, and because it has to do everything with compromise. And if you're one of these who are compromising, one of these who are trying to let a little sin in and think it's not going to do you any harm, pay attention, because it's fearful to fall into the hands of a living and judging, angry God. In one day, God destroyed 24,000 Israelites, and He destroyed many more because they refused to give God all their worship, all their attention. The Bible tells us the very first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And as we read verse 15, we see Jesus has already praised the church at Pergamus, but now He's condemning the church because they were trying to do what Israel was doing, have many gods and hold on to the true Yahweh God. And listen to Numbers 25, 1 through 3. Israel remained in Acacia Grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. They invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel from that day was joined to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. Why? Why is Jesus getting upset with the church at Pergamus? Because they wanted to worship Baal, and they wanted to worship Jesus Christ. They wanted to commit sexual immorality and still try to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And one of the most scary things that we're seeing today is compromise. Compromise can be a word used to try to reconcile or resolve a conflict, but it can be an ugly word as well. You know, I read the story of a missionary in Haiti, and he tells the story of a man who owned a house. And this is a very poverty-stricken nation. Haiti was built as a nation making a deal with the devil. And he would sell this house, but only had one condition. He was allowed to have a peg remain affixed at the top of the main entrance. And every time he would sell that house, he would let the people know, I own the peg. And what he would do after a few weeks is he would take dead animals, he would take objects that were sacrificed in the name of voodoo and witchcraft, and he would hang those carcasses on that peg. And the people said, this is our house. You're not allowed to do that. He says, remember, I own the peg. And the Haiti government wouldn't do anything to try to enforce any kind of legal action. And that's one of the dangers of compromise. And that's what was happening at the church at Pergamus. You know, in the story of Balak, he tried to curse Israel 3 different times, and every time it failed. So he came up with a new strategy. Balak decided to use women to seduce Israel. And what they did, they not only seduced them to commit sexual immorality, but then Israel began to worship the same gods of Baal. And it's sorry, because Baal was associated with the sun god, the god of fertility. Baal produced the god Molech. Molech was the false god that the children of Israel would sacrifice their children to. They would butcher them or burn them alive. And God says, there is not room in my relationship with you and the other false gods. And so when you think about compromise, please don't be fooled. Don't be seduced by Satan's strategy that it's okay, for example, to look as long as you don't touch. It's okay to lust in your heart as long as you don't buy. Folks, that is a lie from the devil. Jesus said if you lust in your heart, you've already committed spiritual adultery. But it's those slow steps that Satan seduces us with. He gets us to compromise in one area, and soon we're compromising in all areas. And as the church at Pergamus is now being condemned by Christ because they would allow little things into their life that ended up being major idols and sexual immorality. And there's things in your life that you might be allowing that are compromised. You may be holding a grudge against someone. You think that's not a big deal. I can be angry. No, you can't. If you're holding grudges against someone, you and God are going to have a hard time with worship, and you've got to learn to forgive. You're saying, well, I just do certain things a little bit at a time. God's telling you to get those things out of your heart and out of your life, because it was a doctrine that destroyed the church at Pergamus. Don't compromise. Give all that you have to Jesus Christ. Start with your heart. Start with your soul. Start with your life.